Okay, hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Victor, and I'm going to be your anchor for this series. Now, this is the Cisco Ethical Hacker course. So we've been trying to lay foundation for the entire curriculum. We have quite a lot to achieve. We've gone through module 1, 2, and we're going to be looking at module 3. So if you are new to the channel, you can subscribe, you can share to your friends that are interested in running through this course. So we're going to be going through the 10 modules. Then we're also going to be going through at least 20 labs over a live stream. So we've looked at introduction to networking. We've looked at pen testing methodologies. We've looked at in the lab, we're going to look at how to build our own lab, how to set up a virtual environment. Then in module 2, we discussed planning and scoping. We explained how pen testing is a cybersecurity project. And if you understand it as a cybersecurity project, you will see that there is need for quite a lot of planning. There's need for quite a lot of scoping. They also try to contrast between governance, risks, compliance, and look at those concepts and see how even the environment, the kind of test we're doing is going to influence our pen testing approach. We also explained the importance of scoping. How is it that we need to ensure that we don't have scope creep? We document everything. We have like a scope of work. We have documented all the processes that we're going to be going through even before we start. And if there are any issues, there's need for point of contact to the client. And we need to document what times are we going to run the test and all of that. They also looked at the mindset because we're trying to do ethical hacking. We're not trying to do hacking. The difference is that this is with permission, whereas this without permission. Same processes, different motives. So professionalism is very, very critical and very important. In module 3, we're going to be looking at information gathering and vulnerability scanning. So that's where we are at this point. So, but before we write on, I will just do a little explainer. So that explainer is going to form the basis of what we're trying to achieve. Now, anytime you want to do a hack, for instance, so let's say I want to do a hack. If I need to do a hack, so we say hacking is trying to get unauthorized access to digital infrastructure. So this can be a site, a website, can be a network, it can be an endpoint device. And this endpoint device can be a laptop, can be a phone, can be a printer, it can be anything. So it can even be embedded systems. It can even be public infrastructure. So utility like water, like rail system. So anytime there is unauthorized access to any of these digital infrastructure, you call it what? Hacking. And the motive most of the times is to cause misinformation, is to cause system malfunction, right? What's happening to my pen? So these are the reasons why, and of course, sometimes it can just be for let's say financial gain, right? So these are some of the reasons why you have a hack. And if these are going to be the reasons why you have a hack, the question is going to be, then what are the processes? So I've explained earlier on that the first thing you do is reconnaissance and footprinting. After reconnaissance and footprinting, I don't know what's wrong with my pen today. So let me clear this just a second. So reconnaissance and footprinting. So after recon, the next thing is, oh, there's an issue today. Vulnerability, right? Assessment, right? So vulnerability assessment is the next thing that you're going to try to achieve after reconnaissance and footprinting. Then, of course, you have gaining access, right? you have gaining access. There you have maintaining access. Pen is a little bit messy today. Maintaining access, then you have clearing tracks. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the 5 ways you can actually do, what's it called? Hacking. So the first thing is reconnaissance and footprinting, then vulnerability assessment, then gaining access, maintaining access, clearing track. So we are at this point where we need to do vulnerability assessment. And to do vulnerability assessment, there are several things you need to get through. There are several things you need to look at. There are several approaches to trying to do vulnerability assessment. So we're going to look at them as we look at this module. So we have information gathering and reconnaissance and vulnerability scanning. So here we're trying to like merge two stages together. The first one, which is reconnaissance, that's information gathering. Then the next one, which is vulnerability assessment. Okay, so the first step a threat actor will take to plan an attack is to gather information. That's the very first thing you need to do. So if I say, okay, I want to steal content from a website, don't forget this is for educational purpose, content of a website, of a site. The next thing you do is to get things like, what's the IP address? What type of server? Right? Then who owns it? Who are the people behind it, the persons behind it? So that's where social engineering come in. So all of this information you're attempting to gather at the very onset, it's called reconnaissance and footprinting. So you have to first do reconnaissance before you can start doing vulnerability assessment, because you're going to do vulnerability assessment based on the items that you've done, you've gathered at the reconnaissance stage. Because here you're going to be looking at, do I have flaws? Do I have things that are supposed to be in without my IP address, the type of server they are using, what's the version, the kind of website, the kind of application, is there vulnerability there? Before you now attempt to say, okay, I want to try to hack so that I can protect that. So you see the process. So it starts with first reconnaissance before footprinting. So some of the things we're going to look at in this module is we're going to attempt to clear up these stuffs. We want to understand the 2 types of reconnaissance, right? The active and the passive. So in passive reconnaissance, this is where you do reconnaissance without actually getting to interact with that digital asset, whether the network, the website, the whatever it is. You don't like actively interact with it. But in active reconnaissance, it then means that you're going to be probing. Maybe you are scanning, maybe you use a software, use a tool to like gather the information, and somehow that digital asset might be aware that, oh, somebody's actually trying to ping, or somebody's trying to scan me, or somebody's trying to, and if you have an IDS or an IPS, that's an intrusion detection system or an intrusion prevention system, it can drop an alert. It's just like me telling you, hello, right? I say, hello. Hello, my name is Victor. Thanks for the other day. Then somebody says, hello, my name is Victor, and he brings out his hand to shake you. Those are 2 things. So this is a passive greeting. This is an active greeting. So at this point, I just say, hey, hello, my name is Victor. Thanks for the other day. Then this person says, hello, my name is Victor. He shakes you, gives you a hug, pats you on the back. This is an active reconnaissance. This is a passive reconnaissance. So in this case, you gather the information without actually interacting with the digital asset. At this point, you gather the information with also interacting with that digital asset. So we're going to understand the different acts of performing different types of scans and how to analyze the results. So analyzing results is very important, because once you run a tool, you need to explain what's actually happening. You cannot just run a tool and say, okay, I'm done with my test. The question is going to be, what are we going to be able to do with the test? What importance is that for us? So like I said, reconnaissance is just that very first initial engagement, right? So this type of information is needed for successful performance of the attack, because if you don't know that information, then of course the details behind that information, you will not be able to get it. So reconnaissance is the very first stage. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you succumb in every battle. So this is what Sun Tzu said in The Art of War. A very nice book. I have it in my library. So the thing is that you must fully understand the digital assets you're trying to do vulnerability assessment or pen testing for. So I've already explained the difference between active reconnaissance and passive reconnaissance. So in active reconnaissance, you're actually trying to interact. You run a tool, you run a software, you ping the website, you ping the cloud application, you scan the network to gather basic information. We call it peripheral information about that particular asset. But that's active. But in passive, things like browsing the internet, using open source intelligence gathering, just scanning things around, trying to look at if you can see any information with respect to that particular item, you classify that as passive reconnaissance. So for active reconnaissance, you're going to actually maybe run a scan and do active probing. We're going to do these things in our hands-on lab series. So for now, we want to understand the different concept. Because if you're going to interact with your client, or if you're going to explain to your client what you're actually doing, or if you need to know which best approach to use, you need to understand this concept, right? So I've already explained also what is passive reconnaissance. So in reconnaissance, there are several methods, right? So the question is that if you're doing reconnaissance, what do you actually need? And maybe how can you do it? So the very first thing is, let's say, host enumeration. And when you're doing host enumeration, you want to know, okay, how many PCs? I'm just wondering what's happening today. So if you're trying to do host enumeration, for instance, you're trying to know, okay, how many PCs, how many devices, how many tablets, those are the different hosts, right? So for network enumeration, you want to get things like IP address, MAC address, all of those details that contribute to your network. You want to have information about that. Then for user enumeration, you want to know your users, how many admins, how many users, how many super admins do you have? You want to enumerate those things, because if you understand those things, then you can now know what is going to be your best approach when you get to the very next stage of the hacking process. Then groups. So do you have groups? Most of the times in Active Directory, or when you set up a network, or you set up permissions level, maybe in the cloud, you might need to group persons, let's say IT department, marketing department, and maybe now give them permissions. You can say, okay, user A, B, C. So you have user A, B, C, D, E, F. All of you guys are going to be in group marketing. So maybe marketing guys can access a particular IP, or maybe when you're doing access control, they're able to do item A, item B, item C, or whatever. So that way, you can tell how the network is being segmented. Then also you have network shares. So shares, are we sharing printers? Are we sharing files? Are we sharing folders? Are we sharing hardwares? What are we sharing? Are we sharing a Wi-Fi? Are we sharing a storage device? So you want to enumerate, you want to gather all of this information. Of course, application, service, packet crafted. So all of these are different types of methods and items that you might be needing when you do your reconnaissance. So for passive, so if I want to do passive, so don't forget these guys, there are active ways to do reconnaissance. But for passive, in passive, you're trying to just gather information that aren't necessarily you interacting with those devices. Things like domain enumeration. So you can just browse and gather those information. Packet inspection, right? You can also do that. Open source intelligence gathering. So you can use the OSINT framework, or you can use quite a lot of other tools. OSINT framework. So I will reserve all of the labs for the lab sessions. So I just want to focus on the knowledge, the concept, because I will normally tell students that 33% of the knowledge and skill you need to become a cybersecurity analyst is your knowledge base. Your knowledge base contributes between 33 to 40%. Then you need to understand tools, techniques, tricks, another items you need to know to prosecute the knowledge that you have. That's another 30 something percent. Then the last 30% is that you need to also be able to do VAPT. You need to be able to do countermeasures. You need to be able to say, okay, this is how to do stuff. This is not how to do stuff, and the rest. So these three areas are very crucial to become a security analyst. So we're going to look at this OSINT framework later on. So it's a very robust tool that you can use to gather information on different types of assets like IP, names, social media handles, and all of that. So very, very, very detailed, very, very detailed. We'll look at it during the hands-on labs. So we have Recon-NG, then of course you have eavesdropping. So some of the things that you do in social engineering, take for instance, eavesdropping, shoulder stuffing, dumpster diving, tailgating, all of those things can be associated with passive reconnaissance because you're not actually interacting with the digital asset. You're just trying to gather information about the asset before you proceed to the next stage in your hacking process. Okay, so in one of the labs, we're going to be using different OSINT tools. So if you are learning something, you let me know in the comment section. You can also share with those interested in learning cybersecurity. So during the lab, we're going to be going through different OSINT tools. Some of the OSINT tools that are available on Windows, that are open source, that are web-based tools, because some of the tools are web-based tools. Some of them are available on Windows, some of them are available on Kali Linux. Okay, so DNS is domain name service or domain name server. So anytime I will need to set up a network, if I need to set up a network, if I need to set up a website, if I need to set up, right, a file system, any of those guys that I need to set up, what will happen is that I will need to create a server, right? So this server rack is going to host all these items here. And when they host these items here, I will save them. Then I will now have an address that I can use to recognize this particular server. Then I also will now have an IP address that I can match this name to, because normally each of the items on your network is going to have an IP address, but you're not necessarily going to know all of the IP address, right? You're not going to know all of the IP address. So you need a human readable name, right, that can represent the IP address. So that's why IP addresses are going to match to what? Servers. See, for instance, this one is matching to this. So anytime you do a DNS lookup, you determine the IP address and the servers that they are matching, right? So hope that's clear. If you have questions, you could ask in the comment section. So this is what it looks like. You just do a DNS recon /d, then you say, put a domain name. We'll do all of this hands-on, right? So just stay tuned. So another tool you can use to do scanning or gather some information is Nmap. So we're going to be running Nmap, the ZenMap version, that's the GUI version, or we're going to be running the command line version, maybe in Linux. Okay. So anytime you hear the word MX record, so MX record have to do with mails. So take, for instance, you want to gather all the mails in a server. You can check for the MX record. Right? So if you're doing a D command for this particular domain name, so you want to check out the MX record. So it's going to be telling you, okay, where do we have all the mails domiciled? So you have, I think some of them domiciled in Google Mail Service. So you have all of this. So some domain names are going to have it on, let's say, mail dot something. Some are going to be using a third-party mail service. Now, identification of technical and administrative contact. So why is this important? This is important because if we understand who controls what asset within the organization, it can lead to performing some kind of pen testing, especially when you're trying to check for vulnerability or susceptibility of attack on the persons, the people that control those digital assets. So you can start trying to see if you can identify technical. So what are the kind of places you can get this information? On job sites, on social media handles, mere searching. So all of these things constitute reconnaissance, and you can have some vulnerabilities in all of this process. So at times, some people are going to abuse their contacts. They use their contacts anyhow. They use their contact to send mail, and it can get to the wrong person. So most of the times you can identify who owns a particular domain name or who is responsible for it by doing a whois command. So you can do whois.com/whois. We'll work on that on the labs. So when we get to the labs, we're going to run some of these tools and do quite a lot of case studies. Okay, like in this example, if you just say who is hacker.org, it's going to give you details about the domain name server, the contact address, who is responsible for it, when the domain name was procured, when it is expiring, or you could do whois.com/whois and put in a domain name. You are going to get all of these details. Okay, so this is for Tesla. Okay, so we're going to do a lab that have to do with DNS lookup. So we reserve this for the lab sessions. Now, what about if we want to do reconnaissance and footprinting for cloud and self-hosted applications and related subdomain names? So what do you call a subdomain name? So if I have something like netflix.com. So this is a domain name, right? So if I have mail.netflix.com, this is a subdomain name. If I have something like blog.netflix, this is a subdomain name. So this is the domain name. Then this is the domain name extension. So this is the extension. This is the domain. This is the domain. Then this is the subdomain. Then this is the extension, this one. So you have different types of extensions. So you have .co.uk, .com.ng, so this what's it called? So this I've tried to differentiate between a domain name, a subdomain name, and a extension, a domain name extension. So a company can own a domain and related subdomain name, but its application might be hosted in the cloud, right? So doing reconnaissance or doing footprinting can help you in further pen testing, because if you're going to do penetration testing for Netflix, but Netflix have other subdomain names hosted elsewhere. So trying to actually resolve and gather the information about all of those subdomain names and hosted application contributes to you understanding the entire digital assets you are meant to test. Okay, so let's write down. So example of ownership of IP address and hosted applications in the cloud. So you see, for this particular IP address, if you do a grep and just get out on your organization name, you're going to see this is by Amazon Technology International. You have Amazon Data Services. Then you have, if you use whois on this, you get this, right? So you're trying to grab all of those organizational names. So I've talked about whois also. We're going to run whois. It's a very simple tool, just something like this, right? You can enter in the domain name and it's going to grab all of the information for you, right? So social media scraping. So part of how you want to, let's say if I say Cisco, or rather I should have said cisco.com. So it's new. So cisco.com was gotten, one of the very first set of domain names was gotten in 1987. These are the name servers. So well, the question some students might be asking now, why do I have more than one server? So this is for redundancy. So that's the word. So redundancy, so that if I have server one, for instance, if I have server one, I have server one, I have server two, I have server three. So this is name server one. So the name server two, name server three. So if something goes wrong, so we can be distributing 50% of our traffic to this place, 50%, 20% of traffic to this place, and 30% of traffic to this place. So if something goes wrong, we can create a load balancer between our traffic and redirect traffic to this particular name server. That's why we see most servers, they don't just have one address. They can have 1, 2, 3. Some can even have up to 4. So it's just the way the server is configured to be able to allow you to be able to ensure availability. And you know, in cybersecurity, we'll talk about the CIA. So one important aspect is availability. Availability ensures that we are always up and running. So you're going to find out that you have the name, the city, the state, the phone numbers, the email, and all of that. So those are the kind of details and information you get when you run quiz. So for social media scrapping, we want to gather people contacts, their email, their phone numbers, and we're going to look at this in detail when we look at module 4, when we consider social engineering attacks. In social engineering attacks, we're trying to say people will really want to help. If I meet you and say, okay, please, I need $10,000. If I get it, I have a job for you because I see that you're a security analyst. We're going to work on the project. That project is like $5 million. And we are going to be able to do this. We're going to be able to do that. I just need to be able to do this or do that. Most likely, you're going to give me that money. Or somebody meets you and say, okay, I learned that you work in so and so place. I understand you can do this and this. I just have to stop by in your office. I want to send an email. I'm stranded. I left my laptop in the office. I left it at home. I need to send an email and wherever. Most likely, you're going to give me your laptop. So once you give me your laptop, something else can happen and information can be gathered from that particular laptop, even if it's a work PC. So that's why you see the approach of defense in depth is so crucial. And that's why also staff, internal team members need to be trained with respect to social engineering, because if they understand all of these tricks, if they understand that they shouldn't post too much information online, then it can help the organization to be secured. Okay, so there's a lab we're going to do that is going to involve employee intelligence gathering, right? It's going to be employee intelligence gathering. So that is going to help us understand how to ensure that we keep safe, we train our employees so that they don't go and reveal far more information that we need to actually reveal. Because the principle is actually to keep it very lean, to keep it very small, to keep on and release only the most important information. Okay, so let's look at cryptographic flaws. So what's cryptography? So cryptography is you trying to say, I have ciphertext, I have plain text. So my name is Vic X25 ABC725 EJ5289ACDBF28. So this is the ciphertext. Now, what might be the plain text for this? So the plain text might just be Victor. So this is plain text, this is ciphertext. So if I'm going this way, I'm doing what? Encryption. If I'm going this way, I'm doing what? Decryption. So cryptanalysis is the study of this and this, right? So we're trying to say that anytime I want to convert this to this, there might just be a formula, right? Let's say a formula. At times we say an algorithm. It's just like saying the formula of an algorithm is A5 plus the input, right? So the name is Victor or times. And what is going to be the output? So I'm just going to say A5, the input. So our times this A times Victor. So maybe I have V. A times I have something like AI. A times C, I have something like that. You compute, you substitute or transpose. There are different ways to do this. If you check the Cyber Ops series on this channel, there's a complete module on cryptography, so you can look it up. If you check the channel, you're also going to see a series on Computer Security Plus. There's a series on Computer Security Plus, there's a series on Cyber Ops. You can check it. These two courses, they have a course on cryptography. They have a module on cryptography, right? So you can look at it. So going back and forth, like I said, is encryption. Going this way is decryption. So in this formula, in this conversion, there might be a flaw that will make it possible for people to know that, oh, since you have this is going to be the plain text. Because when you hide information in terms of trying to protect your information, and this is what we call confidentiality, is a way to like make sure that only the persons that need to see the information see the information. Once you do that, you might also have some vulnerability. You might have some flaws, and that's what we're trying to look at, cryptographic flaws. So things like sockets, secure socket layers, the one you apply to your website and a web application, some of the subjects or some of the details inside this secure socket layer is things like the URI, the OSCP, the CRL. You have it's something like this. Let me just show you. If you tap on this, click on this connection is secured, click on this, I think you're going to see quite a lot of information. So you see all of these details, all of this information can also lead to this certificate being compromised, right? So you see that this certificate is issued. If I tap here, see when it is validity, it's not valid after now. This is the algorithm that is being used. This is the public key. This is the certificate ID. This is the certificate for the SHA-256 fingerprints. So all of this information, it's what that certificate is carrying. That is the URL, the OCSP, the CRL, and so on and so forth. So all of these serial numbers, common names, can also result to information leak. Okay, so digital certificate assigned for hacker.org. So this is just what I showed to you, something like this. If we go to, if you go to this, right? You tap on this, click on this, click on this, you're going to see the certificate details assigned for a particular domain name, right? Okay, so during the lab series, we're going to look at more of them. So attackers can also leverage this transparency to like get out information from these certificates. So you can obtain detailed information about certificate from certificate.transparency.dev, right? You can also use, I think I use SSL checker, SSL checker. right? You can grab quite a lot of information about an SSL certificate from that. You just need to put in the domain name. Once you put in the domain name, you can use it to diagnose problem. You can get details about the certificate. You can get quite a lot, right? Okay, so you have also SAT SH. So this also gives you full details about the domain name, when it was implemented, when it's expiring, which subdomain names is it taking care of. So this is what you call a wildcard SSL. So you have some SSLs, some SSL certificates, they just take care of only the domain name. Let's say whois.com. So, but you see some certificates, they can take care of subdomain names. So something like bootcamp, lab, websploit. So all of these are subdomain names. So you call that a wildcard SSL. Who issued it? Let's encrypt. So you have Komodo, you have Google, you have uh, quite a lot of certificate issuers. So you call them domain certificate authority, right? So, and this can lead to so much information being revealed, but you can't actually help it. So that's why you need to employ quite a lot of defense for your digital assets. You know, somebody, I think a student sometime just a few days ago was saying that, okay, if I have SSL on my site, it then means that my site is secured. So that's not true. So that you have SSL on the site does not mean the site is protected. So the site is going to have several inroads to the site being compromised. So when we start doing vulnerability assessment, you understand this better, because for each type of digital asset, for your website, for your network, they have different. It's just like when you want to get into a door or get into a house. There are different ways to get into that house, known and unknown. Coming through the roof, you can come in through the door, you can come through the window, you can open up the wall. There are several, so that you have a padlock on that door does not mean that the house is safe. So don't forget, if you have questions, you could ask in the comment section. I'm going to reply. And if you're interested in also taking a part in our internships, so we have internships for data engineering, for security architects. We have for cloud. We also have for tech project management. We have quite a lot of internships that are either 3 months period or 6 months period, or you intend to take a certification exam. So we come here with Cisco, we're an AWS partner. So we can provide guidelines for exam taking. You can have vouchers. We can help process your vouchers. We can help you study to pass your exams. Okay, so in the lab sessions, we're also going to look at lab 314. So here we're going to be looking at how to find out information about SSL. Just what we did, we're going to elaborate more on that. Then company reputation and security posture. So what do you call security posture? So security posture is your overall outlook. So how safe are you in terms of all your digital assets? So how safe are they? How you ensuring that your employees are trained? How you ensuring that your web applications, your network, your cloud applications, all of those things are secured? So how do you ensure that? So do you have things like your passwords written in plain text in a paper, or you saved it in a file? Do you have so much information in your drives on your website, or do you have a possibility for people? Of course, people can actually do website archiving. They could have your cache content to do competition analysis. If I go to Web Archive or Wayback Machine and I check your website, I could see, okay, how you were doing 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, what you are doing now, and maybe what your plans are. So these are kind of information that people can gather, and that informs your reputation. So attackers can actually leverage those information from maybe the past things that have happened to you or your outlook and plan an attack. So that's why from time to time, you want to be checking out all of these things and see how to mitigate some of these attacks. They might not look so real, but they can actually be exploited. Okay, so the following additional tools that you can use to search for data are bridge dumps, I love one I used to use, have I been pound? Have I been pound? Okay, this is it. Have I been pound? So you could put in your website there, you could put in your email there, and it can tell you to see if that particular email or website have been compromised before, right? So we're going to look at more in the lab series. Okay, so let's get to the next item. So let's look at search engines. So one thing to be able to do also is to be able to search out information. So just like an overview, if you need to gather information from the internet, we're trying to do Reconnaissance, then you need to know how to do Google search. So for Google search, you're trying to gather information from Google. You're trying to gather information, publicly available information. So that's what we call OSINT. So one way to do OSINT is to do Google search. So this is what we call like Google hacking, or you're trying to gather information that are not necessarily, most people will not know they are there. Take, for instance, you say Sautech, you say company profile, file type, PDF. So Sautech, company profile, you put the text, then you say file type, you say PDF, you bring out the information. That is what is called Google hacking. So for you to get a particular PDF, normally you have to browse through the website, navigate to the pages, and try to get that information out. But if you use very, very powerful search tools to like get that right on the search engine, you call that Google hacking. So you have different types. So you have file type, URL link, and in title. And this, you could use it to get quite a lot of information. In most of our labs, I've used the Explore database to like grab quite a lot of information. And sometimes it's things you want to do for educational purpose only. And for those of us that are going to be joining the lab sessions in the live stream, so some aspect we might stream it, some aspect we might just do it for learning purpose. So because you're going to see things like files containing usernames, some web server detection, some vulnerable files, and some maybe passwords, depending if it was a co-collaborated, a kind of a collaborated implementation, and password was left in maybe the source code for the other developer to see something, or some links was left. All of those things can be gotten during a when you try to do a search and such kind of information is exposed. Then I talked about Wayback Machine. So Wayback Machine, you just go to archive.org. You could put in any domain name there. It's going to tell you how the website have been. Like our website, Southwest Ventures, is like 14 years ago. I'm recording in October 2024. So it's 14 years old. So you could go to archive.org/web and you put in the website's name there. You could see how the website looked like 14 years ago, how it looked like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, last year, this year, right? So this can serve as competitive intelligence for attackers. So this is what it looks like. You just go to web.archive.org, you put in the domain name. It's going to bring out like different dates. So timestamps, you can click on any date and open it with browser. It's going to load how the website was. So we're going to run that in the labs. Same thing with also public source code and repositories. So for companies, that's why if you're also doing this, a countermeasure is to make sure that you host your repositories in a private repository. You don't host clients' data, clients' information in public repository. You want to make sure that it's only internal team members that have permission. And once they leave, you can revoke the permission. So there's a lab we're going to do that is going to involve finding out about information, finding out how do you gather information about an organization? How do you gather